Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Unholy Moles channel. I'm here with Alucard, the Crimson Fucker, he also is, and Frustrated Atheist. Rachel just showed up again. There's Doe-Eyed Atheist. And what we're going to talk about today is our morals absolute? And if not, where did morals come from? How do they fit into our lives? So, and everybody, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, quick shill, real quick, before we start.
Let's go with the person who was here before everyone else, which would be Crimson Fucker.
Alrighty then. I'm the Crimson Fucker. I have a incredibly tiny channel. It's got one video. I'm trying. You can follow me on Twitter at the Crimson Fucker. I'm a very active atheist skeptic, and I also happen to be a high-functioning psychopath, so I have a rather interesting and unique view on morals and ethics.
He's fun to follow on Twitter too. If you're not following him, follow him for sure. And you can put your link in the chat since you have a wrench, Crimson.
Huzzah!
Doe-Eyed, would you like to show yourself real quick before we start?
Yeah, hey guys, finally got my headset working. I was having some trouble. So I'm Rachel. You can follow me on Twitter at Rach Ninja, and my YouTube is Doe-Eyed Atheist.
Cool. Is that it? That's all you gotta say?
What do you want to know about me?
Oh, cool. I'll just shield your Twitter too. Whatever you'd like.
I've got a cat.
Those cats are good. I think they're meant to be assholes.
He's trying to help out up here right now.
And Frustrated?
Yes, I am the Frustrated Atheist. I'm sure a lot of people know who I am. Well, not a lot of people, but, the people who normally go around the circles here knows who I am. I have a channel. If you would like to, go check it out, where I debunk stuff and do sciencey things, and make sure that on Saturday you tune into the Non Sequitur show at 11 a.m. to watch me have a debate/discussion with S.J. Thomason and a guy who's a professor who on Twitter goes by the name Master Apologist. That should be fun. Where we're debating if does atheism equate to communism?
Oh, the SG thing. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, that pissed a lot of people off. And the depression one too. Whew.
Yeah, that
all right,
one was
so
definitely bad.
All right, I guess. Well, let's start. Do you guys think that our morals absolute? What does everybody think? Yeah, I mean, do you think that we need a God for morals? Do you think morals are objective? I should say.
Oh,
I don't think anybody here thinks that.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is there's a case to be made for objective morals even without a God. I personally don't know much about that line of reasoning because I don't do much into the philosophical stuff.
I've read a little bit about it.
But as far as do we need a God for our morals? No.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I didn't think any of us would think that. Okay, well, I guess the question would be if we don't need a God. First of all, why do we need morals to begin with?
Well, morals help us.
Let's start from the ground up. What is morality for exactly?
It's a social construct. It allows you to live with other people.
Yeah, in its simplest, most boiled down form.
not only does it help
Go
you
ahead,
live with other
Frustrated.
people, but not only does it help you live with other people, but it also helps the survivability of the desired species. So, for instance, us humans, morals are good to help keep humans surviving.
Right. It also is what can we accomplish when most people behave morally? You know, I mean, what would we be able to accomplish otherwise if people didn't act
If
morally?
well, if we didn't act morally, then the entire well, not even the human race, but if you go to
Soc-
even the rest of the animal kingdom, uh, all of it would be in complete and utter chaos because
Right. Would
none
fall
of us
apart.
would actually survive. Because why would you want to be around somebody else who you know it has the potential and will stab you in the back the very second they get the chance to?
Right. Exactly. Morality, I think it creates stability, it provides security, um, it fosters trust and facilitates cooperation amongst the species. I mean, without some kind of morals, we wouldn't last as a species at all. I don't think. And like me and Crimson were saying, and I think you were here too, Russ, before we even started that. You know, without morals, society would just literally fall apart. I mean, we do need some kind of morals.
Well, of course,
I mean,
because if you just go solely based off of what is best for you, then how can you judge? How can you have somebody else come around and say, "Oh, this man needs to be arrested"? Why? Because he killed this person. And the guy was like, "Oh, well, it best suited my needs, so I did it."
right.
And you
Yeah.
can't accomplish anything by individual moral reasoning, because individual moral reasoning won't accomplish anything.
But if you go
Right.
around killing people just because you feel like it, it's going to make it difficult for you to live
Yeah,
in a
society would
society
turn
with
on
other
you.
Yeah,
people.
Yeah, society
yeah.
would turn on you. I mean, okay,
I mean, that's
let's
not
take
the
the
only reason, but
no. Well,
Yeah.
let's take let's take the Ten Commandments and deconstruct them. Right? You know, okay, thou shalt not kill. All right, of course, if that was only convenient if it was within their own tribe, within their own people, they didn't seem to have any qualms about killing people outside of their tribe, or that you know. So, are Christians really do thou shalt not kill, or is it more thou shalt not kill people that you live with
Well,
because of society?
Well, the thing
I
is you
mean,
got
if you boil morals down to their absolute base structure, all they really are is a set of rules to ensure a particular society's survival. They do not transcend from one tribe or group to another necessarily without some form of cognizant agreement. I mean, without some form of meshing, one group of morals would be in conflict with another and be completely natural.
exactly. That's why you
Right.
see tribes that are totally okay with cannibalism. It's not only accepted, but part of,
Revered,
yeah,
revered almost. Yeah.
yes,
I
but
mean,
at the same time, they don't. They also take it to a certain extent. They don't
right. They
actually
don't go do it willy
just kill
nilly.
whoever the hell they just so please. They will kill the ones that threaten their way of living. They will kill the ones um, who actually actively try to attack them. And if necessary, they will even do ritual rites among willing participants within the tribe that to kill them to eat them. So there's that.
Right. So,
And I killed the stream.
no, you didn't. No, you didn't. I was typing that, so that's why I could. I was like, okay. So, uh, okay, where do you guys want to start with morals in general? I mean, okay, what morals can we say? What? All right, lying is lying morally wrong?
Well,
Well,
Yes,
that
it
would
is.
again depend on situational.
Yeah,
All
subjective.
morals are
that's a
situational.
They're all situational. It depends on what's coming at you, what facts
Yeah.
are involved, why are you lying. I mean, there are tons of factors that weigh into a moral situation.
So, like for instance, is it morally okay to lie to another human being to have them give you what it is that you want them to give you? Is that moral?
Well, that would be completely manipulative and not fall under morality.
Yeah,
From my own
How,
point of view, as a high functioning psychopath, I
that'd be
probably
ethics
have.
wrong. You know, I mean, there's the ethics involved in
well,
it too.
the thing is with the fact that you're admitting to that in a normal society where you don't have people who are just out to get what it is that they personally need like that, when you're trying to live within a society, is lying to them about whatever it is to get your what you need or what you want. Would that not necessarily be an immoral act?
Well, it would. Again, this is probably going to sound rather draconian, but it would be situational.
No, I agree.
I, as a high functioning psychopath, have to operate under a very strict set of conditions, whereas any action I take either has to contribute to general health, well being, or happiness, or not contribute to undue harm or damage. Now, if what I need is that chocolate bar, yeah, I'll lie for a chocolate bar. If what I need is a car because I want a car, no, I'm not going to lie to you and manipulate you to get your car, but I will take your chocolate bar.
Right.
So, the car. But what I'm saying is, so things like, for instance, the car. That's an immoral act, correct? Or an immoral thing to do, right? Lie to get the
Uh,
car.
Considering the value of the car, the usefulness of the car, and the damage that can be done with the car, yes.
Okay, so then you have people who. So would you say that it's um, immoral to lie to save your life? For instance, if someone sits there and holds a gun to your head and says, um, either you say you truly believe in God or I'm gonna blow your brains out. Would that be an immoral thing to do if someone's threatening your life?
Oh no, not at all.
Oh,
Would be
no,
So
you put a gun to my head? Yeah, sure, I believe whatever you say.
yeah.
And
exactly.
I see an interesting question popped up in chat directed at me. Sorry to interrupt, but Bad Temper Badger asked if I'm one of those people that are lacking empathy. And natural empathy, yes, I lack that completely. The empathy I have is conditional empathy, which I have learned from emotion response. I have to see a person, hear a person, see what their physical and vocal cues are for emotion to generate an empathetic response.
Cool. Good
And
answer.
I killed the streak.
No, not at all. Dade's here, so I just wanted to welcome Dade real quick before we went any further. Hi, Dade.
Hey, Unholy Mole, how's it going, buddy?
How's it going, brother?
About average. Okay,
Um,
I'm here. I'm here to clear the air of some bullshit.
all right.
I'm
Well,
not,
we're welcome to
not
any.
gonna tell you guys how to run your stream. I'm just going. I really just wanted to clear something up about lying. I'm not here to school anybody on anything. Mole knows that
We're
knows
welcome
I'm
to
a
any
bullshitter.
opinions.
Mole knows I'm a bullshitter. We
Opinions are
actually
welcome.
just had some fun on Twitter, and we were having a little roundabout, and I basically tweeted, well, this is, people, this is how an atheist and an agnostic get along on Twitter, and I basically pointed out everything that people shouldn't do, but they're so gung-ho about thinking that they're right all the time, they could actually learn from us, because we agree to disagree, and we don't end up killing each other mostly. We do make fun of each other, but we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing about lying. By definition, lying is bad. And bad is a relative term. It's counterproductive to the situation at hand. But this is why, and I will use this term loosely because a lot of people know it as a basic term of the white lie. Lying is not necessarily a bad thing in reality because it's a function of survival. And it breaks down to basically this. If a child asks us a question that we don't know, instead of lying, we will omit certain truths or facts because we don't have the complete information to give them. If a person asks us, like a woman says, well, what do you think of the color of my hair? And you find it atrocious, you technically lie, but you don't admit the whole truth. You tell a white lie in a way because you don't want to hurt their feelings. And it's not because, my feels or whatever. It's because you genuinely care about that person and they think that they look great and that they're happy and you don't want to spoil that for them. And in the long run, you get used to it anyway. So you basically say to a person, hey, it's like, oh, it looks great, sweetie. Oh, and you may not think that it looks great at all, but we don't lie to harm people. We lie, if at all, in various forms to basically protect another person or ourselves because it's a means of survival.
I will disagree with that.
I don't care if you disagree or not.
There's no need to yell at each other. We can have a discussion.
No, I'm not yelling. I
know
actually
you
being
were.
very
I don't care about disagreeing. I'm simply here to basically state my piece, and that's it. I actually look forward to going back into the chat and having you guys mull this over because you guys have a more cohesive responsibility to each other than I am because I usually don't stream with you guys. So it's it's more for me to just make my say my thing and then say, oh hey, and then look at it from an outsider's view, because if I stay in here and try to take it from as a person that's in the live stream with you guys, it's like, okay, I can't separate myself and I really want to hear what you guys have to say.
All right, fair enough. But
and that's
I would like to hear what Russ has to. I would like to hear Russ's report.
You can disagree with it all you want. I'm going to head back out to the chat, and I want to hear what you guys have to think about my statement. Again, it's just a statement. It's not absolute truth, and it's not absolute fact.
No worries, man. All opinions are welcome, dude. I mean, just because if we disagree, we disagree. That doesn't mean nothing,
Right. So I'm going to go back and listen to what you guys have to say. I want to hear.
Okay.
I'll see you later. Bye.
All right, I wanted to hear Russ's retort, and then Jacob had a good question I wanted to address. So go ahead, Russ.
Well, the thing is I personally don't see that the need to lie to someone for the hair color scenario he gave. I personally will tell someone flat out, I personally don't like this, but to each their own. I've sat there and said that to my fiance many times, and she's been perfectly happy with whatever answer I give her. Same goes for anybody who I'm ever around who I've said this to. They've been, at least you're being honest, because would you rather have that person go out and about looking like complete and utter garbage, or would you rather tell them the truth? Hey, you look like shit. Maybe you should.
I agree with you. But I've also been told sometimes that I'm too honest. I'm brutally honest. And that can get you in trouble at times, So I do see where Dave's coming from. Sometimes white lies are necessary, but I'm not that.
Like,
I'm not that
I do agree with his. I do agree with his thing about the children thing, because I'm not going to tell a 4-year-old who comes up to me and asks me where babies come from. Well, you see, what happens is two adults fuck,
right, exactly.
And I'm going to tell them, the stork comes and yada yada yada. So I do agree with him on the child.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
well, I'm about to get way off on topic. So his overall point was that we do the things we do predominantly for our own survival. And that was kind of one of the points I wanted to make today.
Yeah. I agree with that part of it.
Yeah, but the thing is part of the survival aspect of this is not just individual survival, but survival as
No.
a whole,
Yeah, but
because
this
that's how
leads
we
right
survive.
into what the question Jacob asked was, okay, biggest question here is what and how is non-religious morality going to be based?
Non-religious morality going to be based? It's going to be based on the well-being of not only yourself but others around you, because
Yeah,
in
species
order
as a
to
whole.
survive, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like
for instance, anything that goes against the well-being, and in this, when I say well-being, I mean anything that is okay with their mental, physical, or emotional health. So if it does nothing against it or even helps it, it is morally good. Whereas if it's detrimental to it and threatens it in any of those in any way, shape, or form, it is morally bad, because we are all looking forward. We are all trying to keep the survivability of the race itself going.
Okay, but that just leads us into the conundrum of which set of morals takes precedent. Is the individual or the group more important, as illustrated by the trolley car experiment?
right. Would you run over five? Would you
Right.
run over one person to save five people, or hit five people versus the one person? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, boiled down to its simplest, yes.
Like, it wasn't that like I can't what didn't can't talk about that in ethics? You know what I'm talking about?
I'm
So
sorry, could
with
you
the
repeat
trolley,
for me?
I said
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think that was the philosopher Kant that came up with that whole
Yes.
scenario, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. That's all I was saying.
So the trolley car experiment, where you is for anyone who isn't familiar, is whenever you have a track that can go one of two ways. You have because it's at a split. Down one track, you have five people tied to the tracks, and on the other track, you have one person tied, and the whole entire moral basis now is: do you save one person by killing five, or kill five to save the one? And that alone, I'm to be honest, will come down to the individual. Um, that is a big question. As an overall, just random statement, like if you are trying to, if everybody involved are strangers, most likely you will run over the one to save the five. However, if the person is someone you know, like your mother, your brother, your
Yeah,
family member or
absolutely.
spouse, a lot of people will struggle with this, and
It would be
they
absolutely
will want to
situational.
save. Yeah. Now, me personally, I if I'm to if I'm to go and actually be consistent with trying to keep the survival of the human race going, regardless of that one person, I would still choose the five, because the
Right.
five have a better chance at keeping our population striving compared to the one.
Now that's easy to
But
say. That's easy to say.
exactly,
It's easy to
exactly,
say, but to put it into practice would be another thing completely. Like if it was
exactly.
literally your girlfriend on the tracks, like I mean, but your emotions would almost certainly win. I would hope they would anyway. I mean, that's your spouse. It's supposed to be the person you love. So
Yeah,
I mean that's a really that's why that question is so tough. I mean, it's totally
yeah.
situational.
And that's why I said that if I'm to remain, what's best for the race as a whole. Now, if I was literally put in that situation, my I may just go off of instinct reaction to keep her safe, my fiance safe, because that is my first reaction whenever it comes to her in general. So my first reaction may be kill the five to save my fiance, just so that way I can keep her safe. But I don't know, because I've never been into that situation, nor will I ever actually see myself in that situation anytime soon, but who knows?
And
Right.
I don't think that necessarily saving 5 strangers is like the better choice for society.
Right.
Yeah, because you don't know who the 5 strangers are.
Right. And it's like I said, intellectually as a question, that's easier to answer than if you were to put it into actual practice. I mean, until you're in that situation and you know what the situation exactly is, you can't even make a call one way or another, you know?
Yeah, although Doide, were you saying that that from just a general standpoint, if it's 5 versus the 1 stranger, the 5 won't necessarily be better for society?
What? Oh, hey, Duke. You're saying if you don't know either one of them?
No, what I'm saying, yeah, if I'm saying you don't know the 5 or you don't know the 1.
Yeah,
and-
then of course you would try to save more people.
Yeah. But so you're when you said that the 5 may not necessarily be good for survivability, you were talking about
Yeah,
with
than
the
somebody
one-side
that you
idea
personally care about.
yeah.
Right.
Because protecting your own
Trolley
is kind of what
experiment.
makes this.
Yeah, the trolley
great.
experiment.
Yeah. Rachel, by the way, Shane says hi. I don't know if you have your chat on or not, but he says hello.
Oh, I did earlier. Hi, Shane. But I actually wanted to make a statement about this, so I have it pulled up.
Go ahead.
We are selfish creatures,
Indeed.
and it's not a bad thing. But
So you do.
Duke, you're gonna have to mute yourself.
What's going on, guys?
Not much.
Not much.
I got terrible signal.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, I'm out in the middle of nowhere where the banjos play.
Cool.
Hey, but Duke, whenever you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind muting because we can hear the wind.
Yeah, it's really overwhelming too. Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
The person who said this the best was Mark Twain. Also, I love Ayn Rand's Virtue of Selfishness. But What is Man by Mark Twain? The second chapter is man's sole impulse, the securing of his own approval. And the point that he makes is that everything we do, every decision that we make in our lives, all the good things we do are based on, at least in part, our own selfishness. It makes us feel good to do those things.
Absolutely. And our feelings do play a large part in how our decisions are made, unfortunately. I mean, no matter how logical and analytical you'd like to think you are, none of us are Spock, unfortunately. So, I mean, our emotions do play a large part into what decisions we make and how they're made. Now, I killed the stream.
Yeah, certainly. I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that entirely. I would agree with the entire idea of the selfishness of it too. Yeah,
humans are a selfish species, but we're also a social species. So I don't know. They kind of play against each other, don't they?
Yeah, but being a social species doesn't make you any less selfish.
No, it doesn't.
Like for instance,
you like those social interactions. You like, having
they
those
do, but
in your life.
What was that?
Oh.
Crimson, were you going to say something, or was it you, Duke? I couldn't tell.
Well, yeah, but the social interactions are required for survival, specifically.
Yeah, you're cutting out really bad, brother.
I started talking, but I might be breaking up. If it's too bad, I'll jump out and try to jump back in later.
Yeah, you can. You might want to do that because we're only catching like 1 out of every 4 words, maybe.
So, well, like I was trying to say, so yeah, we are very selfish creatures. Like for instance, if like I was saying, that we are very selfish creatures. For instance, I would much rather see myself excel over other people However, that doesn't mean that I don't want to see other people excel as well. So, so we are both the selfishness of us is still okay as long as it doesn't interfere with everyone as a whole. For instance, I wouldn't sit there and look at Doe-eyed and be like, God, I hope she dies, because then, like if we were in the running for the same position, I wouldn't sit there and say, God, I hope Doe-eyed dies so that way I can get her position. So I can be the person in that position.
Right.
But I would definitely say I really hope that they pick me over her. But if they did pick her over me, I would be happy for her. But I'm not going to do anything to sabotage her getting that position. So selfishness is okay as long as it doesn't get in the way of the overall species survivability.
Mm-hmm.
Now I killed the stream.
Candid Atheist asks, your dog's at the bottom of the pool and so is the neighbors you hate. Which one do you save? Well, if
My
they're at the
dog,
bottom of the pool,
obviously.
they're probably both dead already.
No, because they would be dead if they were floating on top of the pool. So
Oh, well.
that means they're still alive if they're at the bottom, in which case I'm saving my own dog. Because fuck
Okay.
that neighbor. I hate him.
Well, dogs are light. I would try to save them both. Because I like dogs.
Not if it's a Labrador.
Labradors are nice dogs.
Yeah, I know, but if both the dogs are Labradors at the bottom, you're only going to be able to save one.
Oh. Anime is the new god. Well, there is no god in the first place, Satan. So, no, anime is not the new god. Well, not to me, anyway. Is someone hanging out with Zelda? What the hell's that weird noise? I feel like Link's coming to save the princess.
That sounds like a store. That sounds like a store.
Can you guys hear me better now?
Yes, but all we hear a lot more wind.
Yeah. You sound like you're like riding a bicycle and talking at the same time, kind of.
This is how Duke gets his hair dried.
He's drying his beard.
No, I'm in a vehicle.
Are you? Yeah, you're cutting really bad.
So do you think that morality is a product of evolution?
Of course.
I believe so. I mean, it seems to be. I mean, I'm sure. Oh, go ahead, dude. Go ahead, Russ.
All right. So when it comes to the subject, we have to start off with the basics of what morality is and boil it down. Like, for instance, the one who you're as a, let's go far back as saying as an Australopithecine, you live in the the wilderness and it's dark. You hear some rustling in the bushes. Now, it could be one or two things. It could be just the wind, or it could be, in fact, a predator. The one who automatically assumes that is a predator is the one that's going to survive over the one who's just going to automatically assume it's the wind. So, we then go into the fact that darkness now is a bad thing. Darkness is bad because we can't see the predator in the night.
Right.
Then you also go to the fact that you see a cave, and you go in there and realize that this is a great place to keep you out of the elements, such as the cold and the rain. And so now you know that shelter is a good thing. So you have a very, very basic idea on what is good and what is bad. Even with then you get to the more complex things like fire. Fire is good for warmth and driving away unwanted critters in the night, but you also know it's bad if you touch it. So, which I'm sure there were plenty of burnt hands by the who was it? The first one. It wasn't Erectus. It was actually the Australopithecines again. I believe there's some evidence that shows that they did were able to harness power or harness fire.
So my question is, how much of that is an instinct that you're born with, and how much is learned behavior?
Well, it is a learned behavior, all of it.
Yeah.
For instance, you're not born with knowing that knowing that fire is going to burn you. However, there is some things, like for instance, as a child, you know that whenever, for instance, when a baby is born, it normally cries, and it cries a lot. It doesn't know
Right.
what's going on. It's a new experience, and it's terrified. But they also recommend laying the baby on the mother's chest and letting it hear the heartbeat, because that's how it knows safety.
Yeah, that's
That's how
something
it
they're
knows.
used to. They're comfortable.
hmm
They're comfortable
So
already.
that's something. So safety in itself is something we're born with, along with fear. We do both of those would be things that we are born with, is knowing the difference between safety and fear, even if it is a bare minimum, as such as new experience, terrified, mother's heartbeat, good. That
Right.
is a basic idea of what is good and bad, and everything else afterwards is more of a learned behavior and learned things, because you over time, the experiences that have accumulated from doing all this stuff is how you learn what is good and what is bad.
Right. Well, there's a 17th century English philosopher, Thomas Hobbes, said something along the lines of, um, if we always had to fear being injured or having our property stolen, we could never have any rest, and our lives would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So, by not killing, by not stealing, that ensures the stability of our society. And when people go outside these moral norms, I'm not going to call them absolute morals, but there are moral norms. I mean, they're what's good for society. When they go out of the norms, there are consequences for that, because so that's I mean that shows evolution to me in a way. I mean, because I mean, people have the ability to do things outside the norm, but they're going to face consequences if they do dumb things. Is that what you're kind of getting at, Rachel?
Yeah, I was kind of just hoping that I could get him to say that morality is like something that we're taught by the people around us and by our own experiences.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, everything that you have within you is based on a or a learned and taught experiences.
Right. Like Christians say, if morality comes from God, then it should be an innate, built into us, and we wouldn't need anybody to teach us.
Yeah,
right?
it's something you're born with. You've been blessed with your morals.
Which is one of the things that I actually got. I don't remember if it was on Twitter or if it was in a live stream, but I sat there and I think it was SJ who said that that kids are, I think it was SJ. It could be somebody else, but someone they said that kids are born with knowing that things like lying is wrong, and I said absolutely not. That is not something they learn, or that's not something they're born with. They actually learn that lying is wrong. That's why children, all the way up until they have they can actually think about this, know that if they lie, when it comes to something like, for instance, I broke a glass. No one's around to see it. They just come in and it's broken, and they say, "Did you break that?" If you lie and say, "No, I didn't," and you are successful, the people, you don't get punished.
Right.
Whereas if you say, "Yes, I did it," and they punish you, then you're like, "Oh shit! Well, if I just said no, I would have been, I would have gotten away with it." So you learn for sure that when you lie, lying can be both useful and not, because then there are times where you lie and you're found out to have lied and you get in trouble. So telling the truth and lying are definitely things that you have to figure out, and not, these are not learned, these are not things that are just innate within you.
Right.
It's only wrong if you get caught.
Oh,
Exactly.
and welcome, Badger.
Hello.
Hey, Badger.
Hey, Badger.
So
How is
you said
everyone?
you wanted to add something, Badger?
Yeah, I just thought I'd poke my snoz in for a minute and ask, assuming that I think everyone pretty much came to the agreement that well-being is a good basis for morality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Assuming that that is a good basis, what do people think when what is best for well-being isn't clear? For example, with long-term issues, an issue that's often on my mind is the development of the human species versus overcrowding of the planet.
Well, that one is a tough
That's a
one.
very
So,
sticky question.
It is.
yeah,
It's a good
because
question. Deep.
One of the issues is how much the human race is populating. We do have an overpopulation issue, because humans are reproducing at an alarming rate, and that has to go back to the fact of whenever we would have 10, 20 children, just so that way at least one or two of them would survive. But now that we have modern medicine and we can keep children living, people are still out there producing more and more, and it's gotten to be a real issue. And it is a very hard thing to say, because on one hand you could say, well, in that case, what's best for the race itself is to kill off a large portion of it and limit the reproduction rate. And that would be a moral good for the long term. Then you have the short term problem of people who are like, well, who do you choose on who dies and who lives? And why do these people get to make these choices? And so it really is a hard and complex question to get into.
Well, I was
That is
thinking.
something. Oh, go ahead.
I was sort of framing the question in the abstract sense, and how would you go about judging something like that? Not necessarily specifically that question, but something of that nature. Do you think it's best, for example, to try to frame everything in a more scientific and numerical sense? For example, try to account for all the variables that you can think of, put some kind of numerical value on them and put them in some kind of equation? Or would it be better to try to think of it in a more empathetic and emotional sense?
Well,
I think the majority
the
of.
best.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Doai.
I was going to say the majority of those situations are probably better looked at with logic, science, numbers. But, in that particular case, genocide's never going to be okay. Like,
Right.
it's never going to be all right to just murder the population.
No,
Well,
but you could also. Oh wait, go ahead with with Crimson.
As long as we're speaking in the hypothetical for this, in that posited scenario, we require licenses to drive cars. We require special training to operate incredibly complex heavy machinery. if we're going along that lines, this will sound incredibly draconian, but having a breeding license where a certain genetic viability for the couple, IQ rates, financial stabilities, encompassing several different factors that would lead to the well-being of a child, could be implemented.
Yeah, and
That would be a far better solution to that scenario.
And I could see something like that happening in a future where the world is overpopulated and there's not resources for everybody. I mean, versus genociding people, that would be the better solution.
I definitely think that for the species, that even if it didn't go that far as having people, the people who are able to breed being based on IQ and all this other stuff, at least limiting people in general to one or two children per household or per whatever.
They tried that in China. That didn't work out too well.
Well, the thing is that's whenever you have people who will come in. Then, like for instance, if you do have two children in the house, then the man and the woman would have to go and get themselves fixed in a sense, so that way they can no longer breed.
Well, I think part of the issue here is freedom of choice versus the good of everyone, and also defining what the good of everyone even is.
Yes,
true. That is a very hard decision to make.
Because there are people who would argue that current rates of I've forgotten how words happen.
Current of expansion.
Expansion of the population will stabilize over time, and they point to various Western populations where the increase in population has started to stabilize at some kind of happy medium in quotes, and say that and say that in other countries, once they get to some kind of stable level, that'll happen there as well. And there's people who will argue that it'll happen naturally, and there's other people who will argue that the countries where this has happened have stabilized at an already overpopulated level, and that sacrifices are having to be made to people's well-being in order to accommodate there being more people.
Right. That was going to be my next argument. Not argument, I guess, but question would be: do you think in the future, if the world was overpopulated, do you think that nature would thin out the herd, so to speak? I mean, due to lack of resources, natural disasters, war.
Well,
something. I'm sure the population would dwindle somehow if it got to that point. I mean, because
there's definitely going to be a lot of different things. Like for instance, you'll have countries where people are practically stacked on top of each other just in order to live. You'll have people who will get vaccines and some that won't, and the ones that don't will end up in sense bringing back some of these diseases that were killing off people. And
it's already started to happen.
Yeah, and I think nature itself will run its course, and things will happen.
I'd also argue there'd be a lot of. I'd also say there'd probably be a lot of suicide if things were that overcrowded, because, for example, me personally, if I had to live in that close proximity to that many people, I wouldn't last very long. I very much value alone time and space.
Yeah.
Quick question. Can you guys?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
You guys
we can hear you, dude.
All right, cool. Have you guys looked into antinatalism at all?
What is that?
It's a philosophy. I heard a guy talking about it on the Sam Harris Waking Up podcast, but it's the philosophy that bringing any sentient beings into existence is a moral wrong due to the fact they don't choose coming into existence, and that existence can be considered to be a net negative, or for the most part misery, or at least ending in misery.
That sounds like a philosophy that would come from the Church of Eugenics.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very,
because
very
that
pessimistic.
to say that to bringing in a child is morally wrong, so therefore no one should bring in a child. You're going to kill off the entire human
Yeah,
race.
our species would die.
Exactly. No, I mean I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it, but
I
it just seemed extreme. I think that as a philosophy, it's extraordinarily childish and naive, because you're not taking into account, like, you could sit people down on their deathbed, even if they're dying of a horrible disease, and have them say, "No, I'm glad I lived."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad I experienced this. So but it just seemed like with the conversation of, should we? It seemed like the conversation was going like, should we kill off some of the people to secure the species?
Yeah, no, like even me, I would I say that I live the best life there is? Hell no. I there's parts in my life where I say, God, my life fucking sucks. However, the entire experience itself is an enjoyable one.
Yeah, well, no, it's a one shot you get to actually exist and do anything. So, and everything comes in moments. Like, that's the weird thing about life, is if you really look at it from an objective standpoint, you're really just living moment to moment. Sometimes you dwell in the past and expect the future, but if you're really in the moment, you can just enjoy or be miserable in whatever you're doing. But it's all finite. You know what I mean? Everything's going to come to an end, no matter how good or how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really worth seeing it through. That's just I don't know. I was thinking personally. I think that as we advance in medical research and everything else, I really think that the population problem will start to dwindle off and become less of an issue the more advanced we get in other cultures, because people will not be breeding at the same rate that they are right now.
Yeah. Well, I will agree. And then you also have the people who will continue to breed at the same rate. For instance, you have the whole entire fundamentalists who pretty much use women. The fundamentalists, J-Dubs, anybody, they pretty much they use their women as breeding mares.
Yeah, they're like chattel.
It's like,
a great example of that is the Quiverful movement.
The Quiverful?
Steve Anderson.
Yeah, the Quiverful movement. It's a particular Christian religious movement group.
Yeah. I was doing a response thing to Mr. Sanderson a little while ago. He had a whole sermon about, you got to have as many children as you can, pumping them out every time you're physically able to.
Right.
Yes, and this is one of the issues, is the fact that we do have these groups, and these groups aren't just in a one specific area. We have them all over the place, where they believe that you need to have as many children as you possibly can have. And
somebody needs to point out to them that it's a vagina, not a clown car.
And so the fact that we have this going on, because in the Bible, they justify saying, oh, yeah, the Bible says we need to have as many kids, or whatever they want to use to justify it. But the issue is that was because in those times, they always like to bring up the fact that you have to take the Bible within the context of the time frame. Okay, well, in that time frame, people were dying due to the cold. You got a sniffle, and you didn't know if you were going to live within the next few months.
Right.
Or if you tripped over and cut your leg, you'd die of sepsis.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Medical advancements I do believe medical advancements has maybe thrown a wrench into the whole natural selection thing, because people live longer, people survive that wouldn't have survived before, so that makes a huge difference now. Mm-hmm. So now this is almost in between where what that Duke was talking about, that philosopher said it's morally wrong to bring a child into the world. I mean, we got to find that in between point now, because there's people that don't want to bring any children in the world, then there's people that want to overpopulate the world. We need to find a happy medium.
We do need to find a happy medium, but actually, antinatalism takes it further than that. Antinatalism claims don't bring any sentient life. So cattle, all of it. Like, don't breed animals. Don't, like, anything you do to bring things into existence is against their will because they have no choice in it and could be miserable for them. So it's a like I said, it's a childish and naive.
That is very, very naive.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they could be miserable, but they could be wonderful too. I mean, who's to say what's miserable and what's wonderful?
I have fun sometimes.
Right. Yeah. And we have a weirdly skewed idea of what would constitute a happy or unhappy life, like, especially in Western society. Like, if you look at, like, we think if you, like, somebody living in Africa might be absolutely miserable living in a hut out in the middle of nowhere. But if you I watched a documentary where they brought a bunch of young African men to America and they were all miserable here.
Yeah, they're totally, it's totally subjective to what is good for you versus what is bad for you.
It's really based on what you personally enjoy. Like, for instance, I personally enjoy being out in the out where I live. I will live in a it's not exactly a city, but it's a more rural, small town. That's as close to other people as I can enjoy.
Yeah,
that's why whenever I have to go to Houston, I keep my trips there to a very few and far between trips.
I'm the same.
Can't stand it.
I enjoy the perks of the city, but I'd prefer to live in a smaller town.
A quick thing. I don't mean to. I'm sorry to regress the conversation. You guys were talking about the evolution of morals earlier, and how we're a social species of animal. I don't know if anybody brought it up, but one of the things I wanted to say was, like, as a species of animal, we require being social to survive, which is the reason why ethics and morals evolved in the first place and were selected, because we're not particularly fast, strong. We can't survive. We have no protection thing. A single human walking across the savannah gets eaten by a lion, but a dozen humans walking across the savannah with spears wear the lion. So,
right.
Strength is definitely better.
I said something along the lines, like I said, if we're not comfortable, like, our lives would be miserable. So of course we're going to try to do what's best for us to make life good.
Right, but you're right. But at the end of the day, like, if we are, as a species, or any of the apes as a species, weren't social to some level or another, we don't survive.
Right, because we need each other, because we're not as strong and as fast. That's what I meant by
Right.
You're absolutely right.
I'm going to say something briefly. I wanted to draw attention to Mediocrity's Maya's comment. Morals can be pretty firm and steadfast for a certain amount of time, but not absolute, and they evolve over time.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
But that's the largest complaint that I have with morals based on your religion or on God.
They don't evolve.
You're basing it on an ancient text that can't ever change. It's not flexible.
No.
And it's antiquated.
No, but what pisses me off about that a lot is the fact that so as our morals change over time, they try to within this time frame try to adjust it, saying, oh, well, the Bible said this has been wrong the entire time. It's like, oh, really? Because the exact same people who were for this centuries ago have been, used that same Bible to say that, no, this is exactly what the Bible tells us.
Yeah, it's squaring the circle. It's a constant need to square the circle. When you have the text in your life and you're looking at it as being infallible and God breathed, what you end up doing is you end up having to look at a situation and find out how to square it with the text, instead of being able to look at a situation and say, hey, you know what, why don't I square it by the objective facts of the situation? Why don't I look at the entire situation and say, what's the best course of action based just on the circumstances? And when you have the text there, it says, well, no, this is wrong no matter what. It doesn't even really give a good reason why. It just says so. So you have to say, well, it says so, so I have to believe so I have to do it this way. Whereas if you take that out of the situation, you can just basically look at the situation and say, hey, the best overall choice and decision to make in this situation is this. It provides the greatest amount of well-being for everybody and the least amount of harm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what it's like. One of the things I pointed out when like people say, you know, how did your atheism basically, how did it influence your morals? And like directly it didn't, because it doesn't do that, but indirectly it did, because it took all of the things that I was required, like prerequisites for morality due to the text that I was living by, out of the equation, and I was able to actually just be more succinct and objective in what I was doing.
More true to yourself, really.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. What's everybody's least favorite argument for why Christians say that without God there's no morals?
Is there an argument other than just like
that they're written on us?
Yeah, they say, you know, well, without God we're just nihilists and we, you know, anarchists. We would just run wild. That's fucking just ridiculous. I mean,
but I'm still
there's some higher objective standard. That's my least favorite. There is some higher objective standard that we're all trying to aspire to, and that is why morals evolve over time, because it doesn't take into account the fact that what we were talking about a moment ago is that the morals of the religion itself don't evolve. Like, they're dragged forward by modernity. You know, there's never been a change in any of these systems that happened solely because of the system itself. It happened because the modern social system pulled it forward and forced it into submission.
Exactly.
Right.
What I keep hearing is the golden rule is universal, and that proves God.
Yeah,
but
we've already solved that.
The first part of that's not even true. If you go to a different culture, their version of that rule may be almost
totally different. Yeah, it may be totally different than what you think of. Like, if you say, like, if I go to some Eastern countries and and I ate dinner with them and I demolished my plate, they would fill it back up. Now, in Western countries, we're taught to empty our plates. It's polite. Over there, if we empty our plates, they're going to keep filling it. They're going to think we're fucking gluttons. You know, I mean, so I mean, there is a difference in cultures. I mean, and that I think that also plays into morality.
Well, yeah, but not only that, you have to take into account the tribalism of the situation. We may live perfectly fine with the golden rule within our tribe and not rape and steal and kill and pillage and all that stuff, but neighboring tribes can get it. You know what I mean? We might go to a neighboring tribe and take every damn thing they have, and we might use some religious text to justify it in advance. We might say, hey, man, we're not doing anything wrong. God told me to come over here and kill every man, woman, child, goat, cow, and take all the riches for myself. Exactly. You know, like, nobody ever takes it. Like, I had a guy once say, like, morals are universal, and it's like, except they're not. You know, I mean, even in the most extreme cases, like we have memorials for our fallen Vietnam soldiers. We don't have any memorials for the other side. Why? Because we were in the right and they were in the wrong, right? But they were just doing the same thing we were doing, which is fighting for their country.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, nobody, like, they were just born into a situation where somebody put an AK-47 in their hand and said, you better get out there and fight because they're coming to take everything we have. You know what I mean? Like, nobody looks at it like that. We look at it as our side is right, their side is wrong, and we're justified in our actions due to that. And that, to me, is a nail in the coffin for any kind of idea of universal morals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
one
agree.
of the things that I always hate hearing is the fact, you know, well, if there's no God to give us morals, then what's stopping you from doing all these horrible, horrendous things? Because I'm a dick, but I'm not a fucking psychopath. No offense to you, Crimson. No offense to you, Crimson. No offense to you, Crimson. But that's pretty much what is my thought. Is like, so just because I don't have a God that tells me what to do automatically means that I'm some deranged serial rapist, murderer, and whatever else you want to pin on me.
Right.
Fuck no. And go fuck yourself if you think that the only reason why we are good is because some higher being is down there looking at us and saying, oh, this is what you need to do to be a good person. Fuck you if you don't, if you can't realize that that is something that you should already know. Hey, as an adult, hey, maybe I shouldn't rape this person.
But
I've done
that's
a little
just
bit
too
in murder,
logical.
mostly in role play though.
Yeah. But, oh my god, it just really agitates me whenever there's like, what are you doing? Well, what's stopping you from doing this stuff? Because I have a fucking conscience?
Right.
Maybe?
Exactly.
Cult.
And do you guys think that modern day
Well, hold on.
Christians? Oh,
Hold
sorry,
on,
go
before you
ahead.
continue with that, Molly, Doe-Eyed was trying to say something.
Oh, sorry,
Aw,
Rachel.
Thanks.
Go ahead, We're trying to get your wheels going so you learn how to jump in there
I don't like to interrupt.
like a tiger. Rawr.
So all I was going to say is that it's pretty sad that there's so many people who base their entire morality, their being on like, I do this because I don't want to go to hell. I do this because God says this is right and I don't want to go to hell. And they're trapped in like a toddler's morality.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially, yeah.
Anyway, that was my point. I was.
Yeah, that's a good point, because are Christians doing what they think is morally right out of it because it's right, or because they're afraid to get punished? You know, that's they say the same thing to us, that, oh, if there's no God, blah blah, there wouldn't be no morals. Well, they're the same. What I was going to say earlier was, modern day Christians like Steve Anderson and them would have no qualms about killing homosexuals if they could get away with it, because they would think that it was morally right. That's the moral right thing to do. Like the letter of the law, we should stone them to death. They do that in Muslim countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, you've also got like those situations, like you got those situations where, like, I was dealing with Andrew Straddalatis, I think it was yesterday, where he was saying, where he's like preaching to that, it's not a problem. Blasphemy laws are good because, blasphemy is a form of libel, and it's like, if I return that situation to say, because he thinks that it's all false, then it's okay to oppress it. If I were to say, well, we think you're false, so why don't we use, the government to oppress you? He would have a whole different thing to say about that. So there's like that issue of it's okay for me, it's not okay for you mentality that they seem to have.
Right.
I figured out my least favorite argument for it. I'm going to update that little slot there, which is I heard a while ago just saying, do you realize that there are people who have committed crimes and not been caught? And if what you say is true, then they'd get away with it. That's not fair, is it?
Life's not fair.
No, the ultimate justice argument.
I know it's not. What's your point?
There's actual people that are in jail that didn't commit crimes.
I don't think that was leading to something. That was his whole point, that it wasn't fair.
Okay, so this is when you ask him this question, when he says, "Oh, these people get away with it. That's not fair because they committed some atrocious crime." It's like, okay, do you realize that on a daily basis, everyone gets away with something that would deem as a immoral act? So what the fuck is the point? Because shit happens is your entire reasoning. Shit happens.
My response to that is so somebody getting away with something because there's no God to punish them is not fair, but burning for all eternity because you don't believe in God, that's justice.
Yeah, love me or burn. Doesn't that sound stalkerish? Like, if I can't have you, no one can.
That was the exact point I was going to bring up. A infinite punishment for a finite crime. How is that moral?
Yeah,
for instance, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, unless you go with the whole Catholic purgatory thing, if you're on the wrong side of that sin line when you die, that's it. You're done for. Straight in for eternity.
Right.
Yeah.
I read this somewhere. I'm not sure who said it, but it's pretty much says a man's ethical behavior should be based effectually on sympathy, education, and social ties and needs. No religious basis is necessary. Man would indeed be in a poor way if he had to be restrained by fear of punishment in hope of reward after death.
Yeah. It's definitely a terrible argument, regardless of what your response for it is. But like I said, it's just terrible. It's like, okay, so because your entire line is shit happens on a normal basis, so therefore God.
Right. That makes no sense to me.
And the thing is like every crime you do here on Earth, and it doesn't really matter what crime it is a finite crime. So, for instance, even what Christians love to bring up, the Hitler argument, even Hitler's crimes are a finite crime. His death, I mean, is technically the penance for the finite crime. To say that someone deserves to burn for all eternity and be tortured for all eternity for pretty much ever is a weird concept. Now that, since I became an atheist, it's an extremely weird concept.
When you're in it, though, it really doesn't seem that strange.
No,
like it just becomes a norm that, like, oh, people suffer forever. That's a normal thing.
I never got that because, like, I was never raised religious. So, like, with my ex-girlfriend, I'm like, you really think that people are going to burn in hell if they don't, I'm like, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, I mean, how can you think that's right? I mean, like, I don't get it. I mean, if your God loves you, but you fuck up, you're going to burn for eternity for fucking making a mistake? I'm like, really? Like,
it's because the way that we are brought up. You definitely, for starters, even at a very young age, well, no, I won't say it for every denomination, but being Southern Baptist, at a very young age, you definitely do get this fear of hell. I remember as young as like 7, 8, maybe 9, I would wake up crying because I had a dream that I was going to heaven, and I was there standing next to my mom. I don't know why my mom was standing there, but waiting for me, I guess. I don't know. But she was standing there, and she automatically gets plummeted down to hell. And I remember waking up crying, scared to death that I was going to watch my mother plummet to hell and burn for eternity. So at a very young age, you definitely get this fear of hell burned into you. And then whenever you get to be older and you're hearing these concepts, it's like, to you, it is justified because, for instance, well, we didn't really talk much about atheists because that wasn't really a big thing in my community. My community is very, very religious. So we didn't talk much about the non-believers or the atheists or whatnot. But for people who have done bad things, and get away with it, you're like, well, this is terrible. They need to be punished. And then you have this idea, oh, well, when they get to hell, they'll be punished for eternity. But eternity to me at the time, it wasn't really a big thought to me. I was like, oh yeah, they're going to get punished for their crimes. Awesome. Great. At least they got punished.
Here's something about that occurred to me when I was growing up with the Church of England upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
I misheard or misread, or my dyslexic brain misinterpreted a Bible verse. It's the one. I think it's the one that I've just looked it up. I think I'm looking at the one that says, "I assure you that unless you change and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven."
Mhm.
Now, I misinterpreted that to mean that if you didn't sort of accept the reality of God as a child, you were doomed. You know, you couldn't go to heaven. And that this gave me like a kind of a bit of an existential crisis as a child, because I realized that my dad hadn't done this. Because my dad had sort of grown up on the atheist side of things. And I realized that if I'd interpreted this correctly, which rereading it I hadn't, but I interpreted that as that was it. He's done for.
Right. And you were scared because your dad was going to burn for eternity, right?
And that's not something you need to be thinking about as a child, really.
Oh, hell no.
Is it morally right for Christians to raise their children to think that they're going to burn for eternity just for being bad? That seems morally wrong to me. I mean, that's, you know, that doesn't seem right at all. I can't wrap my head around that one. Maybe it's just being an atheist my whole life. It fucking blows my mind.
I've had this conversation with Duke in the past, but I was about 8 years old when I started really thinking on heaven, and the thought terrified me. I would lay awake at night thinking about just like losing everything that I am, basically worshiping mindlessly for all of eternity. And that thought frightened me, and it stayed with me. And I mean, it still wasn't as great a fear as hell.
Neither option's that good.
No, exactly. But it was the lesser of two evils. And recently, my daughter, who's now 5, spent some time with my parents, who are young earth creationists, and I was raised Southern Baptist. And she came home and asked me, but she was worried that I wouldn't love her because she's a sinner. And these are the reasons I'm an anti-theist, because like you said, these are things that children should not be worried about.
Right.
No.
That's freaking awful.
I shouldn't have to worry. I shouldn't have to worry if my family members are going to be burning and torturing in hell for eternity as an 8-year-old.
Exactly.
No. Which could be one of the reasons why I do
that thing that Rachel brought up, I actually wrote an entire blog article on that.
Yeah,
about how the afterlife is more terrifying than not existing.
DM me the link if you could, Duke. I'll check it out. I'd like to read that.
I will.
I got this is a really simple question I want to ask you guys. Do you think most I'm going to just say religious. Let's go with the Abrahamic religions. Well, not Judaism, but okay. Let's go Christians and Muslims. Do you think they believe out of love or fear predominantly? Which one? Fear or love?
Well,
I would say that's subjective. You'd have to look at them as their different groups.
I just meant like, I mean, if you had to make a wild guess, I mean, do you think that it's fear or love mostly? I mean, I'm sure it's a combination of two.
I personally go with more fear myself.
I would say it starts off with fear. I would say the beginning of it is fear, and then over time they learn how to move that into some kind of weird semblance of love, where they look at people and they think these people are damned, and I must do everything in my power to see that they're not. But I think that the very foundation of the entire idea system is fear.
It's like Stockholm syndrome.
Neil's descending from the light.
So
yeah, I mean, the easiest way to look at it is the phrase "a good God-fearing man."
Right.
You could argue they've all got Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, that's what it would be.
So I agree with Duke. I believe that especially in some of the closer fundamental types, and that goes with just Southern Baptist and Fundamental Baptist and anybody else who goes with that sort of
Pentecostals,
teaching.
they're another one.
That these people are teaching the children to have fear of God.
You absolutely have to throw the Catholics in there too.
the Catholics as well.
Oh, yeah.
You definitely love God because God created you in His image, and He made you, and He did all these things for you. But also know that God has a wrath that is unforgiving and will be very, very, hit you
Yeah, because
hard
an
like
omnibenevolent being would be that way.
exactly.
Like I personally feel that the two most dangerous doctrines of the Abrahamic religions that I can think of off the top of my head are one, the doctrine of eternal damnation, eternal reward, and the other would be the infallibility of the scriptures. But you can see the eternal damnation doctrine at work in the justification of child rape in the Catholic Church, where people are saying, well, it should be kept a secret because if people find out, they may not go to church and then they'll go to hell. You see what I'm saying? So it's like this weird dichotomy they use to just justify the most awful things in the world just based on the fact that, well, we're working for a greater good, right?
Yeah.
But there's no evidence for that greater good. It's just all in their minds.
Yeah, and so because we are under this fear, then over time, once you get to be an adult and realize that you do that you love God, or that God is not going to do any of these horrible acts to you because you are a believer, then you have the love for God because He is so gracious to spare me of such a horrible and horrendous afterlife that I have to love Him now for this.
Right. If you're the right denomination, you're spared anyway.
Right. Well, you've also got to take into account that cookie cutter Christianity that starts off a lot of people with. It's almost like they don't bring the kids up with the hellfire and brimstone stuff. They give them the really, really sugary good stuff in the beginning, and then ease them into that as they get older. And it's it's one of those things where, like, I used to be a guy that thought that the more liberal Christianity was a bigger problem. But it is. It's much more insidious because it's much more inviting. It's much more tolerant, and so it gives this air of being something that is permissible. But if you get past the surface of it, it's still the same stuff. It's still the exact same teachings. It's just packaged.
Like it's almost like you're making it sound like it's a pedophile grooming a child for fucking future rape.
It's like, well, I mean, it kind of is, isn't it? I mean,
ease them in with candy and fucking get them softened up, and then fucking bam, rape them right in the ass.
Dude, I know that I can't remember the guy that said it. It was a Catholic philosopher or priest of some or saint, somebody, but he had said, "Give me the child until they are 7, and I'll give you a man that's Catholic for the rest of his life." That has always been a tenet of the church. It's always been their number one. That's the reason why it grows so much. You catch kids when they're young, you teach them this is what it is, and then you put them into a situation and an environment where anything else besides that is considered deviant, and they won't be accepted if they disagree. Any kind of dissent is absolutely not tolerated. And you have a recipe for people that spend their entire lives believing stuff that they would be better off not believing.
But I guess it makes more sense for me because like I said, being an atheist my whole life, it blows my mind like that. Like why do people believe in God? I'm like, I don't get it. That'd be like me believing in fucking like Zeus or fucking Thor or something. It's a story, you know? Like I don't get it. Like
I know a guy who is a follower of Thor, actually. He wears Mjolnir around his neck.
Is he legit believe in Thor though, or is he just fucking trying to be trendy?
Probably not.
I'd have to ask him, and I haven't seen him for a while. He's trying to get into blacksmithing as a career.
There's Ocean Keltoy.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ocean.
Yeah,
Ocean is he's a polytheist, and one of the pantheons he does believe in is the Norse gods.
Huh.
And he's actually studying to, like, I forget what the word is for their like priesthood, but yeah, he's gonna be like a teacher, like a leader.
I've actually been because I'm a writer, so I have this story. I have some kind of a Viking style story in my head, and I actually been asking him questions along with the people within his Discord who are all polytheistic, and so I've been talking to them about the pantheon and whatnot and their beliefs and whatnot. So, and just been watching their interactions with each other.
That's interesting because they really don't know. I mean, they know who the gods are and they know some of the stories from the skalds or whatever, but they really don't know a lot about Scandinavian gods or the way they worship because they didn't write anything down. I mean, runes were just like short little notes, you know. I mean,
I think one of the things about the Nordic stuff that makes me crazy is I would love, because my ancestry is all going back to that. And I would love to walk around with a Mjolnir around my neck, just as a symbolism of my ancestry. But it's so freaking equated these days with white supremacy that I don't do it.
Is it?
Thor's hammer. Is it really now?
Yeah. There is whole like white supremacist groups that are based on that. So it's like that kind of makes me want to go find a white supremacist and beat him up.
On Thor's hammer?
Yeah,
that's weird because my family's from Saxony originally.
Well, I can kind of see it because
really
if you think about it, so you have the Swedes, who a lot of them were is the Aryans that the white supremacists dream about.
They're the whitest of the white people, man. They're mayonnaise sandwiches with the crust cut off.
Exactly. So you have, so I can see it. So I can definitely see it.
They're super white.
Super white, blonde and blue-eyed, with big muscles. Man, I got to stop that. I'm starting to make myself stumble.
I'm going to go and dig myself a new hole, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, Neil, did you have anything cool to add?
Yeah. Since you're here, let's
I think he's just making a sandwich.
No, he's at work, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am at work. Why?
No, I was just telling them that they said you were making a sandwich. I said I doubt that. He's at work and he works with you.
Do you work?
No, he's making crystal meth.
No,
he's scientist and stuff.
He's testing.
Do you work in heaven? Because you're looking very, very luminous there.
Neil the cherub. Neil the cherubim.
He's an angel.
Gigantic order I had.
God, he looks like a biker.
He looks like a roadie.
Roadie? Fuck you, I'm the singer.
He looks like the singer. Yeah, there you go. You're not as arrogant as most singers, to be honest. I've been in a few bands, and most singers are kind of arrogant.
We are?
Some of them, yeah.
I think I'm the opposite of that.
Yeah. But like Rachel said, where do you come in on morality? How do you think it evolved, or did it evolve?
What, morality?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it's part of our evolution.
Yeah. Okay.
It's for social benefit.
Yeah. Pretty much
Yeah,
what we
just
said.
like slap. There's your answer.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we said too.
I'm a scientist.
Yeah, well, I was in the middle of trying to explain it, then I got derailed.
Sorry, man.
That's more or less the way I explain it to SJ. Now I tried spelling it out, but every time she puts that moral, the golden rule crap out, like how did we get the golden rule? I just retweet it and say evolution by natural selection. I don't say anything further.
Right.
Like we've already spelled this out.
Well,
she keeps dropping that article like it's a bomb. Like she drops it on everybody. She dropped it on Steve McRae the other day and was like, "This is my argument." Yeah. I was like, "Dude, we've seen this argument. It's a bad argument. Like, it's not a good argument. This is a stupid argument."
Nowhere
like,
near
it doesn't.
What did Steve say? I'm curious.
No, same thing.
Fucking put out there that Christianity cures depression, which is a load of horse shit.
Oh yeah, fucking. Did you guys see GI's rant to that? That was good. That was really good.
Yeah, I saw GI's rant.
Tell that to me and my relatives who were made depressed by the cultish practices of the local church.
Right.
I'm sorry, that's not funny, but that was great.
It is quite funny.
Right,
it is quite funny to look back on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I gotta say that's probably one of the biggest contributing factors to the depression I have.
So do you think?
Yeah, that whole like Christianity cures freaking depression crap is like, that was brutally just.
I have
dumb. It was just it's dangerous. You have a lot of followers.
Yes.
A lot of people look up to you. A lot of people really look up to you. Don't say.
Or know why.
Things like that. Don't say things like that. Like to me, it was like I think I said something along the lines of, "You cannot plug your religion as a cure-all into every situation. Stop. Like,
So
but he
I've
believes
got
it.
a little thing on this in my head that I've been thinking about ever since I saw GI's thing. Now, GI did say that there is a correlation between those who have joined the church and whatnot. Now, but of course, for those who saw it, it automatically is just that. It's just a correlation. Now, and I can explain the correlation. So
Right.
now this is a bit of a what's the word? Anecdotal evidence, but I'm pretty sure that if you get a lot of people together who don't take medications for depression, they might agree. But a lot of us who don't chase this dopamine high, and it can come in many different forms, but this dopamine high just keeps you level enough in happiness to where you're like, yes, I feel good, and then once it wears off, you hit
even
your low
worse.
again.
Right. It's just like
Yeah.
being a drug addict.
So whenever you're doing this, whenever you join this church while being depressed, and you're with these people, and they're showing you the love and all this other stuff that churches do whenever you join the
And you
congregation,
get that huge
then
emotional
you do.
response. And then when you
do
leave, you
get
feel like shit. Is that
so
what you're
you
saying?
do get this well, like I was saying, that you do get this high, and as you continue to keep yourself involved within the church, the high remains. And then what happens is, once the nudity of you wears off, it then sorry once the nudity of it all wears off is when that low does come, and you will
well,
cause yourself to hit your
well, yeah, but
your lows
you can
even harder.
also you can actually see churches at work using this to their favor too. It's another insidious nature, like with these new modern liberal non-denominational churches, and they have these huge rock and roll band style concert style things that they do every Sunday, and it's like, if you really look at the music that they play, it's designed to put you in a specific emotional state. You know what I mean? Like it's
It's
designed
all
to do
super
that. So they
uplifting and everything.
Right. So they do all of this, and by the time the sermon comes along, you're completely entranced in the entire situation, and it's that much more easy to convince you of whatever the person says because you're
And
already
then,
inclined to.
well,
The
one of the
music's
things
very
that
good
also,
too.
but also, while the preacher begins his sermon, what happens is the band that they usually have playing or whatever, the tune of the instruments are still going
And
in
they're
the very
playing
beginning as he's talking at a very
Well,
low
they do it at
level.
the end too.
and they
They do
play
it
it
at
in a
the end too.
major.
Like when he'll come to the end and he'll start doing his, come to Jesus bit.
Yeah.
They'll have him in the background playing softly, and I mean, the entire thing is just based to play on your natural emotional responses to things, and it's one of the reasons why it's so wildly successful with people.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of you are musicians, but all hymns are written in major key because the major key makes you feel good. It gives you that feel good feeling. It's supposed to elevate your mood. So
They
if
all
you
have
notice,
a
all
sense
hymns
of
are written in the
rising.
major key. Yeah.
They'll have a sense of well, a lot of them have a sense of kind of rising towards a crescendo that leaves you feeling built up and excited, and then they deliver the sermon, and it leaves you in a mentally compromised state to be presented with not necessarily accurate information.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not only a musician. I actually played for several years in a praise and worship band when I was young. And not only are they in just major keys, you'll notice if you go, the keys to each song are very, very close to one another. The chord changes, the structure of the song is very, very, very similar from one song to the next. So it keeps that like continuity going through the whole thing.
Hey Duke, Tatted Atheist is shouting you out and trying to let you know that he played in a band too.
Oh, you're a bass player? I used a bass player, Tatted Atheist.
Oh,
yeah, I'm a bass player.
A bass player?
Oh wow, a bunch of bass players. I've never met
Bass player, guitarist.
Bass players. Yeah,
near
me
me.
too. Huh? So I don't know whether live near you.
I need a bass player too.
Yeah, bass players are usually hard to find. The only reason I became a bass player is because no one ever wants to be the bass player. I started out as a guitar player.
If you want to drummer,
now, Mole, you're perpetuating a hurtful myth that all bass players are frustrated guitar players. Stop that.
If you want a drummer, then you got to come over to England and dig one up out of a little badger set.
Cool.
I thought you lived in Narnia.
Of the rhythm section.
Hey,
So.
Mole, I thought you and Mole were both from Narnia. What's going on here?
We should be the underground deposit states.
Cover goes to Narnia, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Our burrows, they lead under the ocean.
Oh, they don't go through the wardrobe?
Yeah. Oh, our burrows go under the ocean.
I've got the wardrobe.
Well, the wardrobe. You see, the wardrobe has a twin, and both of them are underground in the tunnel, so that way they can both enter into Narnia that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, say hi to Mr. Thomas for me.
Okay.
Oh, he's long dead.
He's a bit.
You buzzkill.
He's looking quite statuesque these days.
Statuesque. Do all of y'all only know it through the movies?
No, I read the book when I was a kid.
I read the books. I
you
grew
read
up
the
with younger
entire series?
creationist parents. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a book reader.
My mum read the books to me.
Yeah.
What about
Actually,
you?
funny thing.
Did you read the series? The entire series?
Not the entire series, just The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I read that because I had to. I was in a Christian school, and I had to do a book report on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So
it's still a good book, whether it's Christian or not. It's still a good book.
Heathen works.
Oh yeah, I don't do that. I don't really have a problem. Like I'll read. Like I love Lord of the Rings, and there's some very real, very serious parallels to Christianity, and that I think it's a great series. You know, or like the band. I don't know if you guys ever listened to the band The Call.
I don't think so. I've never heard of them.
Well, their stuff is that guy was a hardcore Christian. A lot of his lyrics have connections to that, but the songs are great, so I still listen to them. Actually, did you ever see? I know you guys have all seen Lost Boys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know the song with the guys playing the saxophone and they're at the concert?
Yeah.
That's a cover of a Call song.
Oh, okay.
And it's super Christian in nature, but it's still a great song.
Yeah, there's some good Christians. So I like some hymns, believe it or not. I mean, like I'm a huge bluegrass fan. I like a lot of like gospel hymns. I don't know. They're feel good music. That's what it is. It's feel good music.
Well, and let's be, if you're fair about it, like as a mythology, Christianity is super interesting. It's just when people start taking it so damn seriously, they're writing legislation over it. If we could look at it in the same light that we look at, Greek mythology or anything else, it would be a whole lot of fun.
I love gods for their storytelling sense. I just don't believe they're real. I mean, I like them just like any other fictional story.
I just wanted to poke my nose in again about something going on in the chat about druids and stuff like that. If I just say, if I had to pick a religion to go with, it'd be sort of the modern incarnation of paganism, just because it seems the most fun.
It does seem the most fun because you can have orgies. Like any religion that has orgies involved, I might be a little bit inclined to participate, even if I just pretended a little bit.
Honest, it has the least harmful doctrine, which is just if it harms no one, do what you like.
Yeah, I like that the way that they come about their tends to be like reading through the text, finding the good bits that like correlate with their morality that they already hold, and then like taking from those stories like good advice, but it's translated by them. It's not the other way around.
Exactly.
There's also an aspect of nature worship, which I think is quite useful in the modern world because of all the environmental disasters that humanity is causing. I think a little bit more reverence for nature would be quite helpful.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to pour wine between a woman's breasts. So that's all I care about.
Well, that's also fun.
Beyond that,
your bow, buddy.
Hey man, kink is good.
No, but I agree with you on that, a badger. But in the general sense, there doesn't have to be nothing paranormal about it. Nature is one wondrous, fucking beautiful thing. I mean, I can appreciate it just for how fucking wonderful it is. Just like
and terrifying.
universe.
Yeah, I think if you had to have a religion, though, something that venerates nature and encourages being nice to each other and doesn't have a load of wonky doctrine that's just crap and unhelpful, is the best one to go with. If you don't feel you need one, then just don't have one. But if
we were just talking about gods and whatnot, it was funny because as y'all were talking about that, I came across this Ricky Gervais quote that says, "There have been nearly 3,000 gods so far, but only yours actually exists. The others are silly made-up nonsense, but not yours. Yours is real."
I better make my escape, peoples. My food is ready.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, enjoy your tea, sir.
Thank you for making room for me as ever and all that business.
Oh, anytime, brother. Anytime.
Enjoy your blood sausage, dude.
Enjoy your tea. My burrow's your burrow.
Cheerio and all that.
Oh, absolutely, my fine fella. We're gonna have our chat at some point. I'll send you a message about that later.
All right, cool. Sounds
I was
good.
say, smoke me a keeper. I'll be back in time for breakfast.
Stoke me a clipper. I'll be back for Christmas or whatever.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Oh, no more badger.
No more badger. What a shame.
I'm gonna go dig some holes.
Yeah, someone's got to do it. It's tough work, man.
Yeah, you would know.
Yeah. We're going to do an underground apostate chat sometime next week.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm an apostate.
Yeah, we're going to talk about. I can't remember what we're going to talk about, like how out of hand PC culture is getting and such.
That's interesting. I'd love to be in on that conversation because I think that it is getting out of hand, but I look at it a lot of the same way that I look at like when people bring up things like the alt-right. Like a lot of the times the people that they bring up, they're like a very small percentage of a very small percentage, and it's kind of blown up. It's blown up to be this huge problem when realistically it's not nearly so as big an issue. Like the average person still kind of lives closer to the middle.
Right. But you're right, and the vocal ones are the small percentage. That's the bad thing. So that's all we ever hear about. So
yeah, but they seem like they're not because everybody magnifies it. You know what I mean? Like you see these guys acting like utter jazz awful things, and everybody's magnifying that up to this huge degree, and it's really not nearly so.
Beach Price in the chat said something that kind of went along with that. She was saying that that since we have such instant access to whatever's going on in the world, things seem way worse than they really are, and that blows people. It's easier for small things to build up steam and get blown way the fuck out of proportion.
I'm going to say something that's going to be mildly unpopular. Do you guys know who Stephen Furtick is?
No.
He got hired onto Joel Osteen's church. He was a pastor in North Carolina. His church was called Elevation. It was huge. He was in the news because he bought like a $12.9 million mansion, and people were
like a
criticizing him.
Kind of guy?
I don't think he started off. I don't think on that thing. He went to college with my ex-wife, but he actually said something that I thought was profound and actually quite good advice. In the sense, he said, a lot of people are like, we get caught up in social media, and you look at people's Facebook and things like that, and everything seems to be this like amazing thing. And what you're really doing is you're seeing their highlight reel, and don't base your own happiness on other people's highlight reel. And I always thought, wow, that's just really freaking sharp. That's a sharp thing to say. That's a good point.
That's not unpopular at all, dude. That's pretty sound advice, actually. But as humans,
I meant the source.
Oh yeah, the source is bad. But as humans, we do tend to remember good things, or we tend to focus on bad things because the good things seem so few and far between. But it's really not like that, I mean, we just focus on the bad for some reason. We just tend to like to revel in drama, I guess. I don't know. It's human nature, maybe.
if you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, remembering what caused
Oh, hey,
you're really F5, 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 brother.
Yeah, F5.
That'll kick you out and then bring you right back.
I thought he was sleeping.
How's work going, Neil?
Like, the reason I was so late is because of the bullshit that's going on here, because I'm not getting any memos about orders that are needed for giant amounts of antifreeze. So I had to run around and come up with it out of the blue.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that you work for a company that doesn't talk to each other. I've worked for a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, I had to come up with 6,000 liters of global yellow and another 2,000 liters of global blue, which is blending in the tank right now. So the guy that was here to pick it up is like, oh, well, I got to go out elsewhere and I'll come back for it later. I'm like, yeah, you will, because I don't have any ready. And I don't even have the appropriate drums to put it in. So I got to use fucking other ones. And I don't have any labels that I ordered a month and 3 weeks ago.
So it's all a big mess, pretty much.
It's been a really fucking aggravating as fuck day. However, it's all going to get better when I get Eric Murphy later today.
Awesome. What time will that be? Your normal stream time?
4 o'clock, 6 o'clock his time.
Yep. 6 o'clock my time too. So cool.
Mr. Top Heathen himself.
Cool.
Well, I'll come watch you.
Awesome.
I probably will as well. I'm sure a lot of the people here will. To be honest with you.
I'm gonna try to watch. I'm pulling a half night shift, so technically my shift today is from this morning until about 1 o'clock in the morning tomorrow.
Jesus
but
Christ.
I'm doing the same thing tomorrow too. But hey guys, I gotta head in and get some lunch. You guys are awesome. Thanks for having me on and listening to my loud, freaking obnoxious ass.
You love your loud, obnoxious ass. We wouldn't want you any other way.
I'm glad to hear it, because you're not going to get me any other way. All right, guys. Love you.
Love you too, brother.
All right, love you too, Bob.
Be good.
Bye. See you later.
Or be as good as you can. Try to be good. Attempt it.
Duke's a fucking troublemaker, man.
Yeah.
Duke is terrible. Never have him back on it. Just kidding, Duke. I know you're probably still listening. I love you.
Now, can we hear? Did Crimson come back? Because I'm watching the actual screen. I'm not looking at the Google.
Yeah, he's here.
Try to talk now, brother. See if we can hear you.
Is it good now?
Perfect.
Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry about that. I have no idea what happened.
Well, go ahead. You were going to say something before.
Yep.
I completely lost track of what I was going to say.
Please enlighten us. I can't. I don't remember what it was. It happens to me all the time, dude. Yeah, you sounded like a fucking angry gang of wasps were after you.
That's amazing.
You were talking to us.
Not just any wasps, those giant Japanese ones.
Yeah, they were angry too.
That's just epic.
They were like Godzilla.
Yeah, Waspzilla. Literally, they have the.
I hope somebody can get a soundbite of that.
Fuck! It's almost lunchtime. Yeah.
Yeah.
10 minutes till lunchtime. Woo!
Yeah. So, does anybody in the chat have anything that they would like to add? Let's see what they're talking about over here.
We got 7 people left.
Yep.
Pat is still here.
We don't want to overstay our welcome, huh?
I'd like to add that Neil is a bitch.
And he would also like to add that we need to start doing this when he's not at work. I think he said earlier.
Yeah.
Who, Nacha?
No, Tatted. Notch's fucking hours are fucked up because he lives in Tomorrowland.
Yeah, he's asleep right now.
He lives in Tomorrow.
Nacha's lives in the
He's a future man.
Was Tatted at work and he can't be here? Nah, don't worry about it. Tatted. I'm at work too. I'm here, you pussy. What's going on?
Yeah, and he's mixing up chemicals. Looking
Yeah.
like Walt White and shit.
I just got to taste test them all, you know?
Right. Well, since we do sound to be winding down, I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody goodbye for the moment, but I would like every one of you to
So
go ahead and
long,
show yourself
farewell.
first.
Oh.
Show yourself. Show yourself. What?
Chill, not show. But you can do whatever you want, man. I don't care. I don't think I'm monetized. I doubt I'm monetized, so we're good.
I never hide
don't.
Are you weaklings?
I do it for your benefit. I promise you.
You do it for our benefit? Is that what you said?
No, yeah, I was just joking. No, I show myself when I'm not like on live streams. I mean, sometimes, you know,
that's fine. I understand the whole thing behind it anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm just making fun of you because you know
I can't wear a mask to like GI's wedding and fucking on Halloween. Like, well, I could technically. It's a costume party, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take it off eventually. And if I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be a nun anyway, so no mask for me. A big fat
back in the
man
70s, they used to have those cheesy fucking hard plastic ones that just covered the front of your face.
Yeah.
That would be really creepy.
Yeah, or a Richard Nixon mask. I'm not a crook.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Them masks always make me want to rob a bank.
You could always, probably because of Point Break.
Yeah.
But you could always go as a pregnant nun.
No, I'm going as Sister McFister.
Sister McFister.
Yeah, you know? Like,
to go along with Father McFeely?
Yes, exactly. we need a choir boy too. That would be fucking the complete set. That'd be awesome. I think I'm gonna talk Artemis into being the choir boy.
Oh yeah, I heard you got to ride down there with him.
Yeah. I was gonna drive over anyway, but since he's coming from Indiana, I guess he's just gonna stop. Awesome. I'm about the halfway point, so we'll road trip the rest of the way, and he has a designated driver. Voila.
There you go. That's what he was saying. He said he can get shit faced, and then you'll be a driver.
Yeah. I don't drink, so.
Awesome.
It's always good to have us. Heck yeah. That's team effort there, buddy. So with
come to the wedding.
Yeah, you got a little bit of traveling distance on you, don't you?
Yeah, I touch.
Yeah.
You got
it's only
some
about
distance between you two.
It's about a 4-hour drive.
Just only stuff.
But that isn't too bad.
No, it would be more like let's see, Iowa. Easily 12 hours.
Oh yeah, that's
12 hours is nothing.
It's quite a trip. How
Actually,
far would you say you are, Russ?
16, because it's further away from me than when I drive down to Long Beach all the time.
Oh wow!
See, it would be a 17-hour drive for me.
Damn.
Where do you live?
East
Southeast.
Coast, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I
don't know how long. I can look it up real quick.
I would, if I had to guess, I would say for you it'd be between 10 and 12 hours, maybe.
Yeah, if it wasn't 17 hours, I'd be there.
Let's see here, maps. I'm gonna go off of my current location. I don't know where in Iowa he lives, but I'm just gonna type in Iowa.
That's what I did. Just to like the line of Iowa.
Yeah, it would probably be more like 20 some hours for you then, because he lives quite a ways east of me. So.
Oh, good.
Or west of me. I'm sorry, west of me.
Yeah, he's closer to my side.
Yeah, he lives on the other side of Iowa.
Oh, fun. Yeah, so probably like 20 hours.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Because I'm about like 45 minutes from Mississippi, and that there is the Iowa line, pretty much, give or take. I mean, essentially.
And I have the bladder of a small child, so it's going to be 25 hours.
No, mine is not 10 or 12 hours. Mine is from my house, actually, to Iowa, the middle of Iowa, apparently. is 16 hours and 22 minutes.
Yeah, that's quite a drive, dude. That's quite a drive.
It's 1,008 miles.
That is quite a drive.
So it'll be about the same for me then.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Vancouver, British Columbia.
Vancouver, BC, Canada, and you are looking at a day and 5 hours.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
Seriously?
Yeah. According to Google, the fastest way is going from where you are into Washington State through the edge of whatever the fuck that state is, Montana. Then South Dakota into Iowa.
Yeah.
That is a day and 5 hours.
Fuck.
Because it looks like this route crosses a country border. Your destination is a different time zone. So that could have something to do with it.
Only a couple hours. Yeah, it's only a couple hour difference.
We'll see here. He's on...
if I start walking now...
oh, you want walking? Walking, it will take you 25 days.
Yeah, you would just make it, dude.
Start walking now.
Just leave work, take off.
If I make it through Montana without being raped by mountain men.
However, if you decided
not that far.
However, if you decided you wanted to take a bicycle, it'll only take you 7 days.
Oh, excellent.
That's not so bad.
That's not taking into account when your legs cramp up and fail.
Yeah, you're not taking into account how in shape a person may or may not be.
Yeah, you're not taking into account that you will still have to stop at night and sleep every now and then. So there's that.
It's for the week.
Well, he doesn't necessarily have sleep. He is a chemist.
True. I mean, you could make a concoction that'll keep you awake. Oh, and it's hilarious. Let's hear.
Coffee?
Oh no, never mind. That was staying on cars. I thought that I still had it on the car section, and it said avoid tolls, and I was like, the fuck is a bicycle gonna do on a toll road?
Pay a toll?
Oh, but according to this, you don't even according. Hey, it means I'm going faster.
Stop you on a bike. That's the real
question. I have 2
question.
wheels. I'm exempt, you fuckers.
But so according to the bicycle path, though, you will be going through Alberta, Saskatchewan, down into North Dakota, into Minnesota, into Iowa.
Come right through the woods.
Minnesota.
Okay. Get fucked up by a wood chipper, like in Fargo.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, that's your route. Yeah.
You know what I do? I take a fucking plane because it's much faster than all of the above.
And probably more comfortable too.
Yeah.
Yes, a plane is definitely a lot quicker.
Where can I steal a plane?
An airport,
I don't know.
An airport would be my guess. I mean, I'm just
say I live near
here, but
I can steal the fucking the hospital or the helicopter from around the corner here too. Come in via chopper. It's one of those ones like from the old Magnum PI show.
That'd be quite an entrance at least, at the very least.
Yeah, but I don't want to upstage the bride and groom. That would be a dick move.
Yeah.
Oh shit. I have crossed over on Google Maps from I've crossed over from Alaska into Russia.
Alaska used to be owned by Russia.
Yeah, and then there's just this itty bitty island in between the two. Well, these two islands in between the two.
All right. Well, this has turned into a geography lesson, so I'm gonna tell you all goodbye for now. Thanks for coming. And yeah, Donald, we did talk about morals. That was much earlier. I'm sorry you missed out on that.
Live by the one, man. You will, and don't hurt nobody.
They do tend to turn into something they're not usually. But thanks everybody for coming. And have a good day. Goodbye.
Thank you.